Hi everyone, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff and I'll be your host for the show. Before we bring on tonight's guest, if you've had a Dogman encounter and would like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you. If you've had a Sasquatch sighting and would like to be a guest on Bigfoot Eyewitness Radio, please go to bigfooteyewitness.com and submit a report. All right, let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is Leoni. Leoni, welcome to the show.
Hi Vic, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming on. We appreciate your time. Leoni, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Hello, I'm Leoni. I'm from England. I'm from London. I'm 26.
From what I understand, you didn't always live in London. You moved to London as a result of having your encounter. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, I didn't want to be anywhere near the woods or anywhere near any open rural areas, so I thought I was safer off in London. I also didn't want to stay anywhere near the countryside because I, at one stage, did believe that they were not urban creatures, but I've recently found out that they can be urban, so still got my guard up.
Touching on what you just said about moving to London, how much of an effect did your discovery about New York have on the sense of security you feel while living in London now?
Well, I thought I was safe, I'm in a tower block, I'm on the ground floor. And after discovering a video a couple months ago about these dogmen in New York City, in America, I was pretty shocked, and I thought, well, if they can be there, they can be here. And obviously, I've not been having my windows open late at night since I found out.
Yeah, it's a shame. Here you moved to London thinking that would give you a good sense of security, and next thing you know, you find out that they do come into cities, and that just shattered any sense of security you had. That's not good.
No, it's not good, because the whole reason I'm here is to get away from them, but now I found out that they could be like foxes, like urban foxes. They can adapt.
Yeah, it seems like they do, unfortunately. How did you find out about Dogman Encounters?
Well, I've got a friend, an older lady, who I'm going to mention. Well, she had a paranormal experience of a ghost, and she looked it up on YouTube, and after that, basically, she came across your Dogman channel, and she's very interested in Bigfoot. She didn't know about dogmen until she started investigating Bigfoot. But it was like shocking to me because when she told me that these dogmen existed, I turned around and said, I'm so happy that you actually know they exist because I think I might have seen one when I was 13, when I lived 45 minutes outside London in a place called Kent, which is also called the Garden of England. And the reason being, it's a very rural, foresty, fields, rivers, a lot of beaches as well, area.
Yeah, that could be a pretty good stomping ground for dogmen, unfortunately. And speaking of that, from what I understand, that area has a lot of history where people have had encounters with various cryptids. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, I used to live in a place called Yildin, and just down the road from Yildin is a place called Tunbridge Wells, 10-15 miles down the road. That's apparently a forest in Tunbridge Wells is infested with Bigfoot. There's been videos online. Check them out. And another place just down the road from Yildin, about 10 minutes drive, is a place, well, not 10 minutes, 25 minutes probably, is a place called Pluckley. You should look that up online because it's one of the most haunted villages in England, and that's to do with ghosts. So we've got a lot of history. We've had Henry VIII in Kent as well, so lots of history.
Yeah, it sounds like it. When your friend Ann told you about me and what I do, did you have any reservations about contacting me?
Well, basically my friend told me that she'd heard a few channels, but the main one that stuck out to her was Vic Cundiff, Dogman Encounters channel. I told her about what had happened to me. She said, right, you need to go there now and listen. So I listened. She never mentioned I should tell my story to you. It was only when I started listening to these experiences, realising I wasn't alone, realising there are people out there, and I just decided to make my own mind up myself and decide to contact you, which is what I did, and I'm here now.
Well, I'm glad you did. You had your encounter when you were 13. What kinds of effects did having such a traumatic experience at such a young age have on your development into an adult?
Oh, wow. Growing up in a family who don't believe in anything, not the tooth fairy, not Santa, they say those things, but as you get older, they tell you it's not real, you know. But it really had an effect on me. You know, I ended up, the list is quite long with really what it did to me. Firstly, I had sleep paralysis. I don't know if you've heard of it. I was held down in my bed every night. Not every night, but quite a lot. I also was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from the doctor, which obviously soldiers get when they come back from war. So anyone who's been through a traumatic event can get it. I still have it slightly. I'm not going to lie. A little bit, I still have it. I obviously moved houses. I moved 43 miles to be exact. I'm scared of forests. I'm scared of the dark. I don't like dogs. I don't own a dog. And as I mentioned before when we were talking before the show, I would never own an Alsatian or a German Shepherd, whatever it's called, you know, because the face reminds me of what I saw.
How did you feel about dogs before you had your encounter?
Oh, I loved dogs, actually. I loved them. Growing up, we didn't have dogs. We only had cats. So, you know, I've always begging my mum, please, get me a dog, get me a dog. When I was 13 and the incident happened, I just never asked my mum for a dog ever again. Because it looks like a dog to me. At first I thought it was a bear, then I thought it was a dog. Then I didn't really know quite what it was until I started listening to Dogman Encounters, and the description was exactly what I'd seen, and I realised I had pinpointed exactly what it was.
Wow, it's a shame that experience caused you to have an aversion to dogs the way it did. I hope that changes. All right, Leoni, please tell us about your encounter now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay, well, I'm 26 now, and at the time I was 13, and it was kind of the end of the summer. I lived in a rural area, and I'm telling you, this was in the middle of nowhere, the sticks, as they call it. And it was an area full of ditches, reservoirs, lakes, fields for 25 miles, houses with thatched roofs. It's a really nice area. I liked living there, even though it was the middle of nowhere. We didn't have any shops, small train station, and we had one bus that took us to school and back. I had a nice life, you know, I was enjoying my time as a teenager. One day, my friend, who lived about 5 minutes down the road, she lived on a farm, and they had mobile homes. And obviously she invited me over and said, do you want to come over tonight? We'll make a bonfire, we'll set up a tent. So obviously I decided to go over there. You know, normal night, warmish kind of night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, maybe towards 10. So we'd made this bonfire, we put up the tent, we were sitting near the bonfire and toasting marshmallows. Now, this area, she had quite a few acres on her farm, and they had chickens. So they had baby chickens, they had middle-aged chickens, and they had old chickens, and they were an egg farm. So we were quite a way up the farm, and we were a good 5 minutes walk, 4 or 5 minutes walk back to her trailer. So, you know, we were having a nice evening, as I said, toasting marshmallows, and this, where we'd set up the tent, was right next to a wood line of a smallish kind of forest, but there was a lot of little forests dotted around. And in between these small little forests, there's acres and acres and miles of fields and hedges and ditches and forests and stuff. So we were there just, having a normal night with my best friend. I don't want to mention her name because I haven't actually asked her for permission, and I don't think she'd want to talk about it again anyway. Wouldn't like to bring it up. So anyway, I was just sitting there with her, and there was these bushes that were I'm 5'6", and these bushes came up to about where my armpit is. So, we're just sitting there, and we must have been about from the bushes, and then behind the bushes, the forest, and then obviously a little smallish kind of, those wooden fences just scraggled together. You could hardly call it a fence. It wasn't a high fence. It was just a couple bits of wood leaned on each other, so you could visibly see. If you stepped over it, you'd be in the forest. But you had to go through these little bushes first. So anyway, I'm 5'6", and these bushes must have been up to my armpit. And we're just sitting there, and we hear a load of rustling, and twigs snapping. And we both look at the forest thinking, what is that? Sounds quite heavy, don't know what it was. And then we heard the bush quite badly rustling, as if something was putting its arms through it or trying to get into it. So we looked at each other and looked back at the bush, not expecting at all to see what we saw. So we've looked over, and I've heard quite a deep growl, and I wouldn't do this thing any justice trying to do the noise, but I'll give it a go. It was kind of like really heavy, vibrating growl. And I'll tell you what, it was a vibration type of growl. Heavy, deep, vibrating. And I'll be honest, it sounded pretty, scary's not the word, but aggressive. And snarling, so type of noise. But that didn't sound like it at all. It was much deeper than that. Even deeper than a bear. Because I've heard bears on the TV. I've never seen one. We don't have bears in England. So if anyone tries to tell me this was a bear, they can literally just, not talk to me again, because I know there is no bears in England, right? We don't have any bears. We don't have any wolves. We might have stray dogs, but definitely not any bears. So I heard this growling and looking at this bush, not expecting to see what we saw. So we heard this growling and snarling quite loud for maybe a couple seconds. I wasn't counting, but probably a couple seconds of it. Still looking at the bush. And with the light we had quite a big bonfire going on. A lot of spare wood around because her mum and dad, they built stuff on the farm. So there was loads of stuff for us to throw on the bonfire. So the bonfire must have been a couple metres wide at least. So, and that was quite near towards these bushes. And our tent was the other side. So our tent wasn't by the forest, it was by the other side of the bonfire, and the bonfire was towards the forest. And as I said, the forest was not too many metres away. So, hearing this growling and snarling, and then from the light of the bonfire, I see something very black putting its head up out of this bush. And obviously it's quite a high bush. It's up to my armpit at least, or my shoulder. So I'm just thinking, I'm looking, trying to figure out what this thing is. Firstly, I can see a black head, a lot of hair, and the ears, now they were the things that stick in my mind, because I've never seen something like that unless it's like a rabbit or something. Ears sticking up like right into the sky. They were very obvious. I could really make out sets of teeth. I could see what I thought. Now, I could be wrong, but to me, it looks like it had 2 sets of teeth, like a shark. So 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. So that would equal 4 lines of teeth. They looked really big. There was like at least 2 or 4 main teeth that were at least, well, I thought they looked as big as a lighter, to be honest. Anyway, it was really, really black in colour, like very black, like when your TV's off, that type of thing. If you look into the night sky, really black. Like, you just, you know, unless you heard it, you wouldn't have seen it looking. But because we heard it, we saw it looking. We're looking at it. It's looking at us. We're looking at it, and I can make out that, yes, it looks, everyone, I need to tell you, it looks like, I'll be honest, a very black German Shepherd, except from the snout didn't look as long as a German Shepherd, but obviously it was facing towards us, so I didn't see it. I was intrigued, but I wasn't going to go near it, but I was also very scared because I didn't know what it was, and I fear things. I think all humans fear things that they don't know. And now everyone keeps saying, oh, their eyes are amber or whatever. No, that its eyes, I didn't see any glowing eyes. Yes, it had 2 eyes, but they were pointing like straight forwards. They weren't on the side of its head. I've heard some people saying, oh, they're on the side of the head. No, these ones weren't. They were facing like human eyes, and they were at least 2 inches big. Now, because of the light of the bonfire reflecting on it, all I could see was these shining big eyes, but mostly they looked to me like they were black. But I couldn't be 100% sure, and I don't want to say 100% because I'm not sure. I was more scared of its, its height. So as it's rising out of this bush, it's crouching there. I think it was crouching because it slowly, we're looking at it, still looking at it, and it's got to be at least 15 seconds, 20 seconds that this has been going on now. So we're looking at it and it slowly starts to stand up. And I'm thinking, how tall is this thing? Every time I talk about this or think about this, I get nightmares. Even till now, I've had them for the last couple of days, just because I've obviously been talking to you about it. So I'll probably have another nightmare tonight. But it was horrible because it just stood up so slowly. I can't really describe it, but its head had a lot of hair coming off of it, like an Alsatian, like it's kind of like a mane. It kind of had a mane of black hair. Obviously it was slightly dark, but we still had the fire. It stood up slightly, and I'm seeing what I think is someone who goes to the gym 7 days a week, because I'm seeing a huge Alsatian German Shepherd head. No other colours on it. It's completely black. So I've seen its face, I've seen its ears, I've seen its teeth. I've seen it's looking directly at us. It didn't look like it was attacking. It just looked like it was, it had seen us and it was interested. It was very interested. So it stood up, and I'm telling you the truth, this thing, if I'm 5'6", this thing's at least a metre taller than me. So talking at least 8, 9 foot, maybe 10, I don't know. I'd say, to be safe, I'd say probably 9 feet tall. It was huge. I can't describe it, but I'll try my best. Its shoulders, its neck was very thick. It still had fur on it, but it had most fur on its head and neck, is what I noticed, and along its the top of its like shoulders, but then it had less hair on its arms. They looked very muscular, more muscular than like a bodybuilder, obviously, very muscular, but its arms were very thick, like more thick than you'd expect a wolf-like creature to look, or a dog-like creature to look. I don't know how it got those muscles, but it must have been doing a lot of running and a lot of exercise, because it looked like it looked, with its height, I felt like I didn't stand a chance. I didn't know what it was going to do, and to be quite honest, I was looking at my friend and looking back at it, thinking, I must be crazy, or what is this? I'm thinking, is it a bear? Nope, we don't have those in England. Is it a dog? No, it's way too tall. It's about 4 dogs. There's like 4 dogs. Well, if 2 or 3 dogs stand up on top of each other, that's how tall it was. So it couldn't have been that. I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. At this time, I'm paralysed. I'm paralysed at this time, just looking. The next thing I noticed, its arms were quite big, and I did see what I thought might have been claws, but I can't be 100% sure that it had human hands or not, because everyone says they had human hands. I was so busy concentrating on these muscles, and it had less hair on its chest. Like, you could visibly see, like, it was toned. Like, it did have a 6-pack or an 8-pack or a 10-pack. I didn't really see its legs, really, because it was behind the bush, but I could make out, because obviously there's a bit of space in the bush, that it was standing. It was standing, because when we first saw it, it was lower down, and then obviously it rose up slowly. There was the smell of the bonfire, obviously. You could smell the smoke in the bonfire, but you could smell like an earthly smell. Now, whether that was because we were outside. Now, everyone says they really, really stink. There was a certain smell. I wouldn't say it stank, but there was a certain smell, because we weren't too many meters away from it. Sometimes I think I smell it again, but whether that's just my memory or whether there is one lurking around, I don't know. But it's a smell that if you smell it again, you'll know straight away, and it will take you back. It's like mud. Everyone says, I've listened to some of the other encounters on your channel. They say the noise goes quiet. Due to the bonfire being on and stuff, and just being in so much trauma and shock, I didn't notice if it had gone quiet or not. At this point, I'm just thinking, I can't be seeing what I'm seeing. I really can't be seeing this. It was pretty stressful, because not knowing what to do. Should I run? Is it going to kill us? What is it? Why is it here? Obviously, looking at it, I knew it was a werewolf, but you don't want to admit it. You don't, straight away you're looking at it. You're so traumatized at the time, you're not thinking it's a werewolf. You're just thinking it's a very scary looking creature. All the time we're looking at it, it's looking at us, and its head, to best describe the way it was looking at us, it wasn't turning its head. It was slightly leaning over the bush, slightly. It had its nose kind of downwards, and its eyes were looking up slightly. So imagine you pushed your glasses down onto your nose and you kind of looked up. That's what it looked like. Like it was intelligent. Imagine you put your glasses down your nose and you look up. Like it had its nose kind of down, and then it had its nose kind of up. Like it was gently smelling as well. Like gently smelling. I think what attracted it was that I think we would have been okay that night if we hadn't have done the bonfire, because maybe the bonfire, the light of it attracted it. I don't know. So at this point, it's either die running or die. Sorry to be so honest, but that's how I felt. I was like, either die running or die in the tent. So basically, we've looked at each other and we've just both gone diving into the tent. We zipped up the tent. Not a very good idea. We basically just dived from where we were sitting into the tent, which was obviously not too far away, a couple of meters. Dived into it, zipped it up, and we're looking at each other. What was that? What was that? We used some expletives, but I won't say any of them. So we were, what was that? What was that? Shaking, absolutely shaking, out of breath, shaking. All the time I'm thinking, it's out there, it's out there. At any moment it's going to just rip the tent open and kill us. That's what was going through my head. I'm thinking it's going to rip the tent open and kill us. And, you know, you can't really put it into words. So I'm trying the best I can. I thought the best thing we could do, I said to my friend, we need to go in. We stayed in the tent for about 10 minutes, all the time, waiting, just thinking, is it still out there? Is it watching? Is it going to come for us? What is it? You know, is it someone dressed up? Obviously not, because it's not going to be 10 feet tall. It was just absolutely terrifying. I'm very petrified of spiders. I would rather hold a tarantula, a poisonous tarantula. I'd rather hold a poisonous tarantula or get eaten by a great white shark than ever see that again. I'm telling you the truth. These things, when you see their face, no movie in the whole world can actually get a proper good image of it out there. One, they don't really want you to know what they look like because they're so beyond demonic and beyond evil. When you do see one, you know, they're like, I don't know, they're a lot more scary than they make out in the movies. Just put it that way. I want to tell you people, do not go out looking for one. Do not purposely go out looking for one because you will regret it. When you actually go face to face with one, you will regret it. It will ruin your life. You can never unsee it. So don't go looking for it because you don't know if you're going to bump into one that's going to kill you. You don't know if you're going to bump into the black sheep of the family that they have kicked out of the pack or something. You don't know. So I'm telling people right now, do not go looking for it. Anyway, so we're in the tent and I'm saying to my friend, we need to get back to the mobile home. When I'm saying this, I'm even feeling stressed right now, even talking about it, because it is just one of those things that I don't like bringing up. So I'm telling my friend, we need to get back into the mobile home. We're in the tent for 10 minutes. What was that? What was that? Doesn't matter what it is. We need to get out the tent and get back in. We're not safe here. I think it's going to kill us. I knew it was still out there because I did hear rustling. I did hear rustling out there still. I know I did. I wasn't paranoid. No way. And we've eventually plucked up the courage because I know that thing's so tall, so it must be quite fast. So I'm really wary about getting out of the tent now. But anyway, we've unzipped the tent, got a couple belongings together. I can't even remember what we picked up. It was that stressful. Just unzipped the tent and we got out of the tent and we started running. And it was a good 3-4 minutes run down to her mobile home. And while we're running next to the forest because the rest of the farm, it's got loads of lorries, it's got chickens. So there's this driveway this long, it looks like a driveway, but it's not. It's just an empty bit that they drive up and down, which is parallel to the forest. So we're running down that. There's no other way to run. We've got to run next to the forest. I don't want to run next to the forest, but we've got to. We're running next to the forest, running. And as we're running, I knew I was being watched, and I didn't have to feel like I was being watched because I could hear this thing running after us. And it was running quite fast, maybe 15 miles an hour. We must have been running 10 or 15 miles an hour, I don't know, but it was running. And I could hear twigs snapping, branches snapping. I could hear thudding like this. Its feet must have been pretty big because I could hear its feet thud. I kept looking behind, but I couldn't see it. But I obviously could see like branches, just like random branches, just like getting like thrown out of the forest. Must have been snapping off or something. But it was just, you know, we managed to get back into the mobile home. We ran in. You know, the scariest thing was there was no lock on the door, because what they'd done is they'd cut 2 mobile homes in half and then like put it together, and they had this outdoors lodge bit. So they had an open door and then just a lodge bit. So there wasn't actually a door. So we've gone in and shut her door, her bedroom door. It could have just walked in. It literally could. It could have just walked in. All night, I'm thinking it's going to walk in. So we've gone into her bedroom, and I keep looking out the curtain because I know it's out there watching. I know it's out there. I know it's out there 100%. I couldn't stop looking. I had this overwhelming urge of evilness, like I was being watched, and I felt so vulnerable. Like, us humans, we think we're so bloody powerful. We're not. We're not powerful at all. When you come across one of these, you realise we're just like an ant to them. They can just literally one swipe and you're dead. I just didn't sleep that night, obviously much, because I kept on thinking, I was just in my head, it's going to walk in this house, or it's going to kill us. It's still out there watching. You know, why is it watching us? It must want to kill us. If it's watching, it must want to kill us. Like, we didn't tell her mum and dad. And obviously I've gone home the next day. I didn't tell my mum or dad, because my mum and dad, I'm not trying to be rude to my mum and dad, but they would lock me up in a mental home, in a mental hospital, into like an institution. Like they would just, if I told them that they are really old school, they would not believe me. And I already didn't get on with them very well already. So for me to come up with, I think I saw a creature that was like a man and a dog that looks like an Alsatian and was 10 feet tall, and it was stalking us, I don't think it would go down too well, to be quite honest, especially with my grandma, who's a reverend and has died now, but at the time she was a reverend, a pastor of a church, running the whole church. Like, you know, I don't think, they're very old school. They would not believe it. So I just thought, just leave it. I tried to sweep it under the carpet. I did have a conversation with my friend about it, I think, maybe vaguely, but we never spoke about it again. But I'll tell you the truth, it really did affect me, because I was 13 when it happened, and a couple of weeks later, I don't know what happened, but I started having sleep paralysis. I decided to put myself into foster care and move myself away from my mum and dad, who I lived with, because I'm adopted already by them. But I decided I didn't want to live with them, so I got social services involved, and I got them to move me to London. And it really hurt my mum and dad. They had no idea. They didn't understand why I'd just gone and told all these like things to social services, that I wasn't happy where I was living. And I dropped out of school. I dropped out of school as well. Obviously I dropped out of school because I'd moved. I didn't want to be going to the same school that was 10 minutes drive from where I had that encounter. I didn't want to be going to school. No, forget that. You know, I was too traumatised. I'd gone to the doctors before I was moved to London, diagnosed with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, all of these things. It was just absolutely terrible. Even now, I still suffer a little bit from it. If I see like a shadow at the window, I'm always scared. Like it's always in the back of my mind. I have tried to sweep it under the carpet, but there's only so much sweeping you can do. You know, it really did affect me. I don't know if it affected my friend, but all I know is I wouldn't watch any werewolf movies or anything until now. And even when I bring this encounter up, my true feelings, I'm scared. I feel like if I'm bringing this encounter up, is it going to happen again? Because I'm talking about it. Could it happen again? I don't want to talk about it, but I think it is helpful to talk about it and to hear these other people. But I put myself into a care home for kids, a children's home in London. My mum and dad, they were heartbroken. They had no idea what they thought. What have we done wrong? What have we done wrong? And I couldn't tell them, oh, well, I saw a dog man and I know you wouldn't listen to me, so I've had to move to London. I've been in London ever since. And that's exactly what happened to me. So that's my encounter.
What would you say is the biggest obstacle that's keeping you from dealing with your encounter in a healthy way?
I'm still really, really not happy because I'm living in London and I just a couple of months ago found out that they could be also in urban areas. So I'm struggling once again.
Yeah, when you find out information like that does make it difficult to deal with. At its closest point, how far was it from you?
5-6 meters, I'd say.
Yeah, that's pretty close. Could you tell if it was male or female?
I didn't see its bits, but I'll be honest, I got a feeling, that I had a lot of feelings just from looking at this thing. The feeling stayed with me afterwards, and the feeling was there at the time. I felt like he was an alpha male. I don't know why. It wasn't because he was so tall, big, and he was black, and he just looked very manly. But I could be wrong. But I had a gut feeling. I don't know why. I can't tell you why, but I had a gut feeling it was a man.
Yeah, listening to you describe it, it sounds like it just might have been an alpha male. The first time we spoke, you said the dogman seemed to be old. What was it about it that gave you that impression?
Yeah, I actually forgot to mention that. When I was looking at him, for some reason, I had another feeling. All these feelings were hitting me like messages. And one of the feelings that I got was he was prehistoric. He was old. Just by looking at him, he looked very... I know it sounds odd, but he looked wise. You know, the way he tilted his head downwards and looked up, his eyes upwards at us, was like, hey, look at me. I've been here a long time and you guys don't know. You know, it felt like he was watching us for a long time. And if they're so intelligent, then they must have been, I believe that they came from the Egyptians. Because when I saw it, the truth is, it looked similar to those Egyptian pictures, those hieroglyphics or whatever they're called. It looked like that because it was the same colour, it was tall, it had the same head shape as it. And I thought, well, that's definitely, thinking about it afterwards, it was ancient, but looking at him as well, he just looked, when I was looking at it, I thought to myself, if humans live to 90, he's double our size. Maybe he's 200. You just don't know.
Yeah, that's something to think. If they actually do live that long, that'd be something. You describe him as being a werewolf. Do you really think they're werewolves, or do you think they look the way they do 24/7, 365?
The feeling I got when I saw it, I say werewolf because in England, we've never heard the term dogman until your channel. So in England, we just call them werewolves. And obviously, I used to believe in the movies that they weren't real, and I believed that a werewolf was a man who changed into a dog. But however, my opinion has now really changed. When I've seen this thing, it was solid, skin and bone, with hair, half man, half dog. It was obviously, I don't see how that thing can transform to 10 feet tall every day. It must be hard work. So I believe it may be, I couldn't be 100% sure, but my guess would be that it was probably in that form all the time. But what really puzzles me is if it's 10 feet tall and obviously quite wide in its shoulders, but quite thin in the waist, but its shoulders are so huge and it's so tall, I wonder where they live. Where do they hide? You know, and the government cover it up as well. So I wish I knew the answers, because it would help me, you know, get over it if I knew the facts.
Well, I think the answer to your question is they hide wherever they want to, especially being 9 to 10 feet tall. Wow. Is there a particular movie werewolf that depicts the dogman you saw that night more accurately than any other?
They say the American Werewolf in London or whatever, that's quite muscly, isn't it? But it wasn't, it was more like, its face was an Alsatian and its body was just a black beast. It was just a muscly black beast, is all I could say, really. It didn't really, it just looked how it looked. It looked, he was him, you know, he was who he was. And I hadn't seen a movie of something with so many teeth, such pointed ears, such a dog-like face, but such a manly figure. It was just, I haven't yet seen, if I'm honest, I haven't yet seen a film that looked 100% like what I've seen. I have seen a picture online, however, that looked exactly like the one I saw. I have seen a video and a picture online of one identical to what I saw, which maybe I could send you one day. It looked exactly like that.
From the way you describe it, it sounds like the werewolf in the movie Silver Bullet was probably the most closely related werewolf to how this one looked.
Well, if you can imagine most of the videos on YouTube of the ones that sit in the bush, you know, the ones that are sitting in the bush that don't really move. There's a lot of videos in America, in Michigan and Texas, where they seem to be just sitting in the bush. And you can see it's all black and it's pointed ears. It's exactly similar to your American ones.
I see. When you consider the fact that he could have waited to make his presence known until after you two had gone into the tent that night, do you think that would have been better or worse if he would have done that?
I don't know. Anything he did would have been terrifying. Even if he'd have offered me £20 and a cigarette, it would have still been terrifying. It didn't, it was so scary. It didn't have to attack me. I felt like I was being attacked just from making eye contact with it. That felt like an attack. Its eyes were attacking me. Its glare, it was looking at me. It was reading me. It knew, like, everything about me, I believe, just by looking at me. It knows everything. It was looking at me and working me out. It was working me out. It looked like it was sizing me up. Oh, they're too small. They're only teenagers. They're a bit skinny. I'll leave it tonight. That's what I think he was thinking. He looked us up and down and thought, because, you know, they're not a good meal. I really do. I'm 100%. He was really thinking about it. Really, really thinking about it.
Yeah, I can only imagine what it must have been like to go through that. Not easy at all. Do you have any regrets about going into the tent instead of heading for your friend's mobile home right away?
I was stupid. We should have ran. But he didn't attack the tent. So, was it the fire he didn't like? I don't know. To be honest, I should have ran. Me and my friend should have ran, but I just thought, well, I was just so scared. I didn't know what to do. At first I was paralysed, and then it was an instant reaction. I didn't think, I just reacted. Paralysed, then instantly jumped into the tent, no thinking about it. The only time I actually started thinking was when we were in the tent for 10 minutes and I'll be honest, I was hyperventilating. I was absolutely terrified, shaking, sweating, just couldn't get my words out right. And I think some people are not good in stress situations, and I'm one of those people. I really am. I didn't know if I ran straight away, maybe he would have killed us. I don't know. But I wasn't thinking like that at the time. It was just, I want to get away from this really scary, disgusting thing. I that's just instantly wanted to get away from it. If I can't see it, it can't see me, type of thing.
Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Don't be too hard on yourself. I mean, I think you did just fine. When you two were running next to the forest to get away, you said you could hear him running after you. Did he seem to be intentionally making noise to let you know he was following you, or do you think that was just happenstance that you heard him coming?
Well, do you know what? We heard him actually making his way the first time out the woods. So when he's running, he can't help it. I believe that they can creep around really quietly if they want. But due to his structure, all this muscle throwing around, he's got a lot of weight to carry. So, yeah, he was making quite a bit of noise. You know, all these sticks were going flying and I heard thump, 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 snap, snap. He could have rang alongside us. You know what I mean? So why go back into the forest and run? He did it to wind us up. He was playing games with us and it wasn't nice. It felt like he was just trying to scare us on purpose. And obviously I felt like we were going to be killed. But at the same time, I knew he was also intelligent enough to scare his dinner before he ate it.
How long did it take you to realize that he was just playing games with you that night, and if he wanted to kill you, he could have done that at any time?
Oh, I'm still, I'm 26 now and it happened when I'm 13, so I'm still coming to terms with it. I'm still not 100% sure that he didn't want to hurt me. I'm 50-50. He did, he didn't. I'm never going to be able to make my mind up on that, I don't think.
Yeah, well, it's not easy to come to terms with what happened to you that night, but no, I think if you practice the things that we spoke about the first time we talked, I think you can definitely do that. It's just going to take time. But having said that, Leoni, it's time for us to get out of here. But before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Just one, that where this encounter took place, obviously is about 15 miles away from Tunbridge Wells. And obviously there's a lot of Bigfoot there, and I believe that wherever there's Bigfoot, there's also going to be dogmen.
Yeah, it does seem that way. You'll have some people who have Sasquatch around their property, and everything's hunky-dory for years, and the next thing you know, you've got dogmen moving in, so maybe there's something to that. But having said that, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing the details of that experience with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks again so much. Have a great night. If you've had a Dogman encounter of your own and would like to speak with me, whether in private or on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com and submit a report. I'd love to hear from you.